We started hearing like ta 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 ta, ta something like that. So someone said, what are these gunshots? And suddenly, like the whole like wall and windows collapsed on us. We're all filled with glass. Suddenly, I was looking for my colleagues under blood and like tables. Some of these moments between a crisis and the other are long, and in those moments I think there's so much life happening. Watching movies with my dad was like our main activity together. I mean, he introduced me to Bergman.
Hvem er du? Jeg er døden.
Bergman spoke about broken families and broken societies in a way that I really felt connected to. I felt less alone.
Your film, Costa, Brava, Lebanon, it breaks a lot of classical commercial screenwriting rules. I was thinking, man, even the POVs, I didn't even actually know. I felt like everyone was sort of the main character.
So many things can define the structure of a story. I'm sure that some of the films you love the most are films that just invented something new. If it's attractive to you or not is not my problem. My job is to make it exciting to watch.
This might be a very vulgar question, but what would you have changed? Mounia, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm very, very well. So I know we're short on time. Let's start from the top.
Yes.
Where were you born?
I was born in Beirut, Lebanon.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what did your parents do?
My father is an architect. My mother is an architect as well, an interior architect. And I grew up in a family of artists. My uncle was a pianist. My aunt's a painter. One of my aunts is an opera singer. So it was a world that I just grew up in.
So very much in the artistic.
Yes.
Wow. So what's it like growing up in Lebanon?
Growing up in Lebanon, I mean, obviously, when you grow up in a country that at any moment the political situation might be a threat, it puts you in survival mode, which is not always good because you don't learn how to just be. You're always thinking about what could be around the corner. But in these moments, some of these moments between a crisis and the other are long, and in those moments, I think there's so much life happening, and so I think growing up in a place like that helped me learn how to live fully, I think, and live intensely. And this is why Lebanese people use humor as a defense mechanism, and they're constantly obsessed with the idea of creating and putting a mark on things and just living, because they know that it shouldn't be taken for granted.
When did your love for film, I guess, start to develop? I
think at home, not only in the moments in which we had to hide because of the situation, but also just because my parents really loved telling stories, and I grew up like I loved stories. I loved watching movies. I loved, reading books. I loved the stories that my father would make up for me. So I was just in a home in which that was part of the culture of the home. Like we had games were about creating stories and creating a theater play, so I just felt like I was surrounded by just the act of storytelling, whether it was in fun environments or watching people lie when they can't tell you the truth because you're a child. I used to be very nosy, and I used to love like eavesdropping and understanding how people to get away from certain situations made up stories, or how people basically wore masks in order to be accepted or not. So I just felt like I was interested in what people, the stories that people told and the stories that people made up about themselves as well. So it became a bit of an obsession. I became really interested in what comes out of human beings when they're in a state of urgency, and the truth that comes out in those moments. And basically watching movies with my dad was like our main activity together. So he's the one who really introduced me to cinema.
What kind of films?
What kind of films? I think everything that was in his library. Sometimes my parents would fight because he would show me something that my mother would think is not showable to someone as young as me. But we would still do it behind her back. He introduced me to I don't know. It goes from Tom and Jerry to Bergman,
Bergman.
Yeah.
How old were you?
To different. I mean, when I was a teenager, he saw that I was really fascinated with cinema. So he started just showing me everything he loved, from Italian cinema, Antonioni and all that gang, and the French New Wave. And he just like showed me a lot of things. And I started understanding that storytelling can take so many, like every film felt so different than the other, that I understood how just putting things together changes the whole experience. How you put things together changes the whole experience of the person watching. And as a young girl growing up in Lebanon, and I felt like cinema became a way for me to just learn about the world, Oh, that's a movie about a girl my age that has the same problems as me, but she's at the other side of the planet. And it just felt like a complete window into the world, and I loved it.
So what is it about the films as an artistic platform? Because you described multiple ones and your love for storytelling. How come film is the one that sort of made it out? Why don't you want to be a writer or a painter or even, an opera singer where there's also stories?
I just like that it puts a lot of things I love in the same place, like music, people, the secrets of people that you have as an audience member. You could just be in a room with a person that you'd never be in a room with in real life, when they're in their bathroom or in their, bedroom. And music and just spaces. And growing up in a family of architects, I just love spaces and the idea of knowing so much about a person because of the objects in their home or the space that surround them. And I felt like, as a person who loved theater and music and just people, film was this mise en scène of life, but compacted into one place, and where like time had no logic. I really liked that.
Emotionally, you're quite sensitive and you're quite vulnerable in your teenage years. And yet you're telling me that you watched
I'm not less now.
hardcore movies in your teenage years. Watching Bergman, how did you handle that? I mean, we're talking about maybe the most intense psychological director in history at a time where you're, obviously overwhelmed by all kinds of things that are changing in your teenage years.
Yeah, of course I had phases. I obsessed about Greece because I was obsessed with John Travolta for a long time. And then I obsessed about Tarantino, like Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction for a little bit. And then I started feeling like I wanted to watch films that spend more time with people and I think because actually what drew me to Bergman was the fact that I felt like people were really in their most raw state.
So you noticed that already?
I mean, there's no way not to notice.
Sure.
But I just felt like, because like I was going through a moment where I was struggling at home because of my parents' divorce. And I felt like a way to understand my parents was to see other people in movies or in real life that were not acting perfectly. And it would help me understand, like, I don't know, like unconsciously the nature of human beings. It's like not everyone is an American hero that has a journey that's going on, that has a task and a journey and is going to achieve it. Some people have no clue what they want, and some people say the wrong things and are selfish and don't think about their ego all the time when they speak. And I felt like Bergman spoke about broken families and broken societies in a way that I really felt connected to. I mean, I wasn't 13, I was 16, 17, 18.
Did you question your belief in God?
I think I started questioning like a lot of things when I was like a teenager, everything and nothing. So God was part of it, of course.
It must be very difficult though, because you just mentioned your parents' divorce. I hope you didn't watch Scenes from a Marriage when you were at that age going, oh my God. Oh,
I did. Actually, one of the films that there were 3 films that really helped me during my parents' divorce. One of them is The Squid and the Whale.
Right.
Noah Baumbach. The other one is Stepmom with Ed Harris and Julia Roberts. And these movies, I felt like I started looking for movies that told stories that I was going through.
Right.
And I felt so like I felt less alone to know that, there's another person. I thought another person. There's another person going through something similar. And it just gave me insight on my own experience as well. And I just felt less alone to know that other people were experiencing similar things. And it was nice.
So did you study film? Did you know at 18, okay, filmmaking is what I want to do? Did you go, okay, boom, that's what I'm going to study?
Not at all.
Okay.
No.
Talk to me.
I thought, I love films. I I don't think it's a career to do them.
Yeah.
I think I like watching them. And when we got into this moment in when I was 17, where I was in a French school, so there's a French baccalaureate, so much pressure around like knowing what you want. All I can do is think, like when we had to fill those forms about what you want to do, what you want to be. I had no clue what I wanted. I knew what I liked. I knew I loved films, but that was not a real thing. And I thought, okay, so what do people do? Architect, doctor, business, or all these things. And I thought, well, I love architecture because I grew up in that environment, and I know from how passionate my parents are about it that, it's something that is part of me already. And then I had a conversation with my family about, okay, should I be a filmmaker, or should I, go into this other thing that I love, which is architecture? And then my father's advice, which I hated him for then, but probably I'll do the same with my children now that I've lived my life a little bit more. He told me, do something that is like safer first.
Yeah.
And then if the passion for film persists, then I'll support you in any way I can to actually follow that dream. But don't do it unless you really, really know for sure. And in the meantime, do something you love that is a bit of a backup safety plan. And I said, okay, because I was also scared. So I did that. I studied architecture. And during my architecture school, I started like reading about film, watching film, obsessing about it. Every summer, I would do my internship that I was forced to do for architecture. And then I would do a filmmaking workshop that I would find. Once I did one in Paris, once in Lebanon. And then I was very shy when I was like in my early 20s. And so one of the things that when I was a teenager, I was very shy. And one of the things that my father recommended, and my mother as well, was to take theater, like acting classes. Like there was this troupe in Lebanon called Tréteau Théâtre, where young or teenage people would go and basically put up a play once a year. So once a week we would meet and do acting classes, and then in the middle of the year the teacher would choose a play, and we would put up the play. She would cast us, and then we would just be in the theater for like 4 weeks. And so it was my like outside of school hobby, and I went from hiding so that the teacher doesn't choose me in acting exercises and being so angry that I have to do this, to being completely passionate with it and get like landing lead roles and being on stage for a while. So I already had like friendships in that world. So when I studied architecture, Cyril Aidis, who directed the documentary, who was another person in that theater like troupe, him and I were both kind of like frustrated for the same reasons. He was a consultant.
I see.
And I was an architecture student. And we just said, and we were like, soulmates in so many ways. And we were both like, oh, we're like not understood by people around us. We want to do films, we like, things that no one of our friends really understand. And so him and I decided that while we wait to pursue our dream of being filmmakers, we'll make a short film together just for fun. He had a VHS camera and like I had a little microphone. So him and I acted, directed, did the sound, held the camera, and wrote this stupid little short that I won't name. That was basically like a love letter to each other.
Yeah.
And to Amélie Poulain. Anyway, I was very young. And so it was like a love letter to Beirut in the technique of like love doesn't love that Amélie Poulain does to introduce the characters in the beginning.
Right.
He loves this, he doesn't love that, So it was a love letter to Beirut, but through a relationship of two lovers. And we did it really just for fun, like let's learn how to play with images since we're just waiting like years before we can do that. And this short film started a lot of things for us because it went viral for reasons I don't understand. We had just put it on YouTube for our friends to see. It's like Vimeo now.
Yeah.
And then a lot of expats, a lot of Lebanese people in Lebanon and outside of Lebanon felt really moved by it. And the head of the equivalent of BBC in Lebanon reached out to us and told us, I feel like there's not enough things on TV in Lebanon that are not like the Mexican soap opera epic thing. And we really like how organic and raw this thing was. Would you be up for turning that into a web series that would be screened every day before the news on TV as well. And she gave us a very small budget because we were nobodies, and because it was a test thing. And so, and she requested that we also were in it because the film only had the two of us. And so we ended up writing like a Lebanese Friends in a way, and it ran for 2 successful seasons for a very long time. So what happened with like the courage of just doing something together is that we ended up doing this show for a year and a half while I was in architecture school and he was a consultant. We would shoot during the weekend and I would be an architecture student during the week. And it was like we burnt ourselves out, of course, but that's how our name was put on the map in a way. And that's that show, that web series, even though it's a little cheesy and all of these things, it's my first film school. It's the first time I learned the feeling of making films in Lebanon and how priceless it is. And it made me meet some of the crew members that, and I still ended up working with like on my feature film many, many years later when I was a filmmaker.
You're on television, you've got a web series. You're saying that that's your film school. Your film school is basically going on television, having, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people seeing you.
Yeah, but it was like, these are the things that I feel like happen more often in a big fish, small pond type of environment. You know, I think like that risk that this woman, Yara Daher, took was a big risk. She saw two people in their 20s doing something a little new. And she was like, you know what, I want to, you know, and I think those types of risks in those types of environments are more often taken. So basically what happened is that in parallel of architecture school, Cyril and I, by the way, we were co-directing. So we were really a team. We started meeting people and like the crew of that web series was tiny, you know,
right,
it was a
right.
really low budget thing because that's why they took a bet on us. But, you know, we had to deal with a small budget and it made sense for them to do that. And so what happened is that doing things even outside this web series. So because Cyril and I really just wanted to learn filmmaking because our plan was when I graduate, I'll move to New York. We wanted to move to New York and study film. That was the plan. I get my diploma and that's it. But so we continued making shorts. Like in the summer, we would save time. Him and I would write stuff together. It was like a passion. So we would always be, you know, like writing things, brainstorming things. We just wanted to build our knowledge of film by making them. And we had a team from that web series. So we were working with them and it was just a lot of like great friendships and just people doing it for the love of it. And then architecture school was supposed to be 7 years, but interior architecture is 5 years. So when I got to the 4th year, I felt, okay, I know I want to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
I'm actually building like something already, you know? And I even though I like architecture, I now hate it because I'm pulling all-nighters to deliver projects because I have the good girl syndrome and I don't want to fail. I cannot do things halfway, but at the same time, I want to be a filmmaker. So it just started making no sense that my backup plan was going to take 7 years of my life. And so I went to the administration and asked them if I can transfer to interior architecture and finish a year later.
Yeah.
So that I wouldn't have wasted this time. And that's what I did. And then the last year of architecture school, him and I prepared an application for film schools. Columbia, NYU, and Paris, and all of that. And we both, because we had the same portfolio, because we were co-directing, we both got into the school, at Columbia University for the MFA, Screenwriting and Directing. And we moved to New York together. And that is like the second chapter, I think, of my filmmaking career, because it's when him and I decided to part ways as co-directors, but continued supporting each other in many other ways. Like he would edit for me, I would co-write with him. But this is when I was like, okay, it's the first time that I'm away from home and I'm telling the story that I want to tell, not the story that I have in common with someone else, because there are things that I had in common with him and things that were very personal to me. So it was really, really useful for me, those 5 years in film school, because my mentors were incredible. The environment there was not as toxic as now. I don't know what I would have done if I was in Colombia now. I'd probably be in jail. everyone in the class was from all over the world, and there were brilliant people who came from different, like, backgrounds, different studies as well. And I just felt like wherever I looked, I was so inspired by the filmmakers around me, and I really learned from them. Screenwriting classes were all about reading other people's work. Directing classes were about crewing for each other. So it reminded me of the world that I knew, but just with people who were from all over the world. And I met Clara, my close friend, who's a Spanish screenwriter, director, during one of those screenwriting classes. And we loved working together so much that she ended up writing my thesis film, Submarine, and my feature film. And to make a long story short, I met a lot of colleagues. I met a lot of friends and colleagues that up till now are people I work with and I'm building projects with.
Did you get a scholarship for the 5 years at Columbia?
I had, definitely, I had a scholarship for one part of it. Another part is you can apply for jobs there. So for example, you can apply to be the TA for one of the teachers. And then my father was the third because he kept his promise and
Legend.
as much as he could. Yeah.
What was 5 years at New York like?
It was great, but I must say my class was very international. So there was a great percentage of people from Iceland, from Egypt, from Armenia, from, Brazil, New York, LA. So I felt, I felt really inspired by being surrounded by such different stories and friendships. And just also they were great filmmakers. So I learned from watching other people's way of working. And I started using every class I had, every directing class, directing exercise I had to try different tools. Okay, I'll work a little bit with that type of film language here and that.
Yeah.
And every exercise made me assemble different tools. So when I made my thesis film, Submarine, I felt that it's the film that resembled me the most because I had tried and failed in many other shorts before.
Did you know instantly that you wanted to get into writing and directing?
I find it easier to imagine things that I relate to.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that if I read a book and I fall in love with it, I wouldn't want to direct it, but it would mean spending a lot of time to make it mine so that I can think it through images. I think I always wanted to tell stories, and becoming a writer director just happened without me thinking about it. It really happened when Cyril and I were like, we want to be that, let's try that.
Sure.
But I never wanted to be an actress. As soon as because I did act in that show, but just because. So the short, we were in it because we were just using each other as, temp actors.
Yeah.
But then when she said you should be in the show as well, we were in it because we had no choice, kind of. But as soon as I stopped being in front of the camera, I was like, I don't like that place. I'd like to be behind the camera as much as possible.
Submarine. So how did that come to pass?
It was my thesis film from Columbia University.
Sure.
And in the last year of Columbia, you can apply with your short film, your thesis film, to grants. And then you get 10K or 15K and then it helps you. And then the rest you do crowdfunding or whatever. And so I wrote a short film that I mean, it was fine. It was inspired by a short story I read by Milan Kundera. And then I won a grant for it. Then I went back to Lebanon for the summer, and there was a 2015 garbage crisis.
Yes.
Where people from my generation who don't relate to any of the political parties that we grew up with, that were at war with each other, it felt like that revolution during this garbage crisis, I felt like in the streets I was surrounded by people that resembled me or that didn't resemble each other at all, but had one common, desire, which is to just get rid of this, corrupt political class. And the garbage crisis was a perfect metaphor for everything that had been wrong with our country for so long, because it was an environmental disaster that started with a corruption scheme. And so without elaborating too much on that, taking part in those protests and just thinking about my relationship to home in a very raw way during this time made me realize that the story I wanted to tell was not the one I had won the grant for. So I went home and I emailed my teachers and I told them, if I tell another story, would I still get the 15K? And they told me, what is the story you want to tell? I said, I don't know yet, but I want to imagine the worst case scenario that could happen to the place I love the most, which as an anxious person is very easy for me to always imagine the worst case scenario. And I want to have a character that's trying to stop everyone from leaving this place. That's all I know for now. And they said, well, could you write it in a week and then we can submit it? And if the script like works with the person offering the grant, then we'll let you, but can you write it in a week? I said, okay, I'll try, because I don't want to make this other one. I don't feel the impulse, so I won't make a good film. And so I went and I spent a week with writing it with the help of Clara, of course. And I just basically wrote, okay, what's that world? The whole planet is ravaged by garbage. The world is threatened by acid rain. I started thinking about films like Damnation, Bellatar, where you have this like general feeling that the world is ending. Basically, I tried to write in images the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario for me was that everyone had decided to abandon this place that we have such a toxic relationship to, Lebanon, and this love-hate relationship. I just really wanted to talk about it. So I decided to write this dystopian film that's set in a dystopian future in which everyone had decided to abandon Lebanon, but one woman living in denial decides that she's going to do everything she can to stop people from leaving. So that was the first idea. Then it was like creating this dystopian imagery. This is where I thought, okay, everyone is wearing health masks because there's acid rains, and then we're gonna have not like the garbage crisis that you see now, where it's a little bit here and there. We'll drown the whole city in garbage. So I started writing a mood board. And that's why today, if you watch the film, you think it's a pandemic film. But
yes.
It was a 2015 film. So the masks were a really cool thing then. Like it felt like, oh, a movie from the future. Now it's a movie from 2020 or whenever. And then I started writing her journey. And I thought, okay, what would a person in denial do? A person who pushes away everyone who tries to give her love. Okay, she would live in a complete, like, closed bubble. And then I started building that story, and I thought, how can she tell people, please stay, without telling them to stay? Oh, maybe she'll ask them to fix her window, because that way she's not seeing reality. And so that's how her journey was built. And then I sent them the script, and they told me, yeah, you'll get the grant for that. And they confirmed that they think it's a better script, but they said it's too long and we should, workshop it, that me and Clara should make sure that it's, that it's not a paraphrase of itself. So I just started the writing process, but at least I had the first vomit draft that felt right,
In a week. That's very impressive.
No, it was not great, but at least it was, here's what the story will be. A week, it could be fine if you write a lot, 8 hours a day.
So then how long was the shoot?
6 days.
6 days. And so you made it for 15K?
30K.
30K.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 15 was what I got from Colombia.
How did you start branching it out? Because it had quite a massive success in the international film circuit.
I didn't have a distributor, but when the movie got selected in Cannes, that was like an explosion.
That's it, yeah.
We submitted to Ciné Fondation, which is the official selection student film category. So if you have a film that's coming out of a film school, then you're eligible for the Ciné Fondation, like student film.
Yeah.
And the limit is not 15 minutes like most of the other ones.
Right.
So we submitted and we got in, which was like a very, very surreal moment. I think I'll never forget this moment, because it's a moment in which I thought, oh, this little thing I made back home was seen by, someone that doesn't know us, and they appreciated it. And the woman, Dimitra Karia, called me and asked me, the first question was very odd. It was something like, is this the final cut of your film? And it was not at all. And I was like, should I say yes or should I say no? What would she want to hear? And I said, well, I said something quite vague, but I didn't know how to be political. So I was like, well, we're still working on it, but why? And she basically told us that, they loved it, and then they wanted to select it. And from that moment on, I had to really rush the post-production process to submit. the official version. And a lot of festivals started reaching out after the premiere in Cannes, Toronto, and it was like a snowball effect. So
Sure.
after I submitted to a few festivals, after the screening in Cannes, it became festivals reaching out to us to see it and invite it.
Wow.
And the meetings in Cannes were about that and about meeting producers for my feature film. And that it's around then that we got distribution. Matt Solutions in the Middle East and Premiere Films in France.
Okay. And did you manage to get an agent at that point then?
An agent. When I traveled to Toronto, a few people from the US industry had watched Submarine and requested to meet with me.
Mm-hmm.
So in Toronto is where the US management type of people requested to meet. They had seen the film either in Cannes or on the circuit, and there were the type of managers or agents that want to meet someone in the beginning of their career and hopefully grow with them.
Yeah.
And that's why I signed with my American managers.
Nice.
Not with an agent, because I didn't meet anyone that I felt connected to the point of signing so early in my career. Like there was no real reason to sign, and especially with someone that you don't feel a connection to. And I didn't really know what that meant. So I was a bit green. So I was like, yeah, I'll sign with the person that I had the nicest time with, and of course the conversations were interesting as well. Then, a year or two later, when I had a full draft of my first feature film, which is a bit of a spin-off thematically of Submarine, I got into the Cannes residency where I spent 6 months in Paris. And a year later, I skipped a year where I did the short with the director's fortnight, but let's skip that. So, because we're on the agent front. So 2 years later, I'm in the Sundance Labs, and one of the other doing the Sundance Lab for Costa Brava, my feature. And in the Sundance Lab, you spend 1 month in the Sundance Mountain in Utah, and you direct 4 scenes from your script in a way that's just you trying out something, just to see what the language is. And each of us lived with 2 other participants in a nice, cabin in the woods, a very nice one. And I was with a Palestinian guy called Ihab and an English girl called Dion Edwards. And her and I became really close friends. And every time I came to London, we hung out. And she told me, I think my agent at Independent Talent, Olivia Gray, would really love your work. You should meet her if you want rep in the UK. I said, yeah, I'd love to meet her. So I met Olivia and I sent her an email with all of my work that included the short films I had done in New York, the short films I had done in Lebanon, the web series I told you about. I just sent her all of my work so she gets to know me. She watched all of it and we met. And I really liked her, so much that I left the meeting and I called Dion and I said, I hope we sign, because I really liked her. She feels so real and honest and smart and has really good taste in things. And then so a week later, Olivia, who had told me she wanted to sign me, tells me, okay, so I actually am pregnant and I'm going on maternity leave, but I really want to sign you. So what I suggest, she said, is, would you do this year on my maternity leave with my colleague, Alex Rusher, who's also an amazing agent and independent. And then in a year, we start.
Yeah.
I said, yes, of course. And I spent a year with Alex, and I loved Alex so much that when Olivia came back, they decided to co-rep me. So
Nice.
The way it works is that if one of them brings a project, and so that's how it worked, that I have Olivia and Alex as my reps in the UK. And it's thanks to them that I have had such great opportunities in the UK, in TV, and soon in film. I've, as you know, I've been working on a lot of shows here. The last one being House of Guinness, which will be on Netflix in September. And yes, in September.
That's gonna be awesome.
House of Guinness by Stephen Knight, who did Peaky Blinders. Obviously, I don't need to say
legend.
And so, the greatest relationship I've had, I think, in terms of management, or not in terms of rep, is with Independent Talent because of these 2 women. I really love our conversation. They're not like they're just really real and honest and work hard, and I love that they really know like my mind and I know their mind. And yeah, so.
How does that work? Are you resident in the UK, or you don't need to reside in the UK to have a UK agent? How does that work?
No, I didn't need to. When I signed with Olivia and Alex in the UK, I was still living in New York and then in Paris. Basically, they can create conversations for you all over the world.
Right.
But of course, they know London very well. So a lot of the opportunities that came to me or meetings that I got in the UK, came from them, like let's say someone went to the BFI and watched my film, they would reach out to them and we would meet together. And then they would also make sure that people who wouldn't have seen my work would see it as well. And then later things happen naturally. But in the beginning, yeah, I mean, then let's say when I lived in New York when they reached out to me saying that the team of Boiling Point wanting to meet with me to potentially, work with them, with Phil Barentini and Stephen Graham and Hannah Walters on Boiling Point. So when I basically met with them and really liked them, and I thought, okay, I can make that work. I can go to the UK. I was on a work permit. Here as an international.
Right. Yeah. And you were based in Lebanon or in New York? Because I know that you also teach in New York.
Yeah,
right?
so basically I teach whenever I'm not shooting. So I was teaching in New York and in Philadelphia when I did this call with the Boiling Point team. So what happened is that it was in the middle of the semester.
Right.
And when they told me they wanted me to do it, I went to the dean of the school and I said, okay, so this is happening. And he said, listen, you're a teacher who's a working director, and that's a thing that the students love. And we understand that you have things to do. So we're really happy for you. Would you consider basically teaching remotely while you're there? And I thought it was possible during my prep. And I even had Matt Lewis, who was the cinematographer who did adolescents, give them a masterclass. And then I agreed with them that the last month when I'm shooting, then I have 3 director colleagues of mine give I invited 3 master classes during the times where I couldn't make it.
Right.
And they really supported me in this. And then I went back after the shoot. I did the post remotely while teaching there.
Yeah.
Then I got a call from the responder team. And here, I was like, okay, I'm not going. If I do this job and I go back to the UK, first of all, life is telling me that I should be moving to the UK because it was always a plan. My sister lives here, my close friends live here, and it's closer to home. And I had reached the 10-year itch of New York, I think. So what happened is that I went back to the school, and I told them, okay, I might be doing this again on another show, and I feel it's unfair to the students to have a remote teacher, even though it's exciting for them that they have a teacher who's working and who can talk about. So they agreed. They told me, yeah, whenever you move back and you're not, out of town and all of that, then let's talk again. But after 2 years of pandemic, it would be too much to have a teacher that's remote for a whole year. And I was burnt out. Because I really loved my students and I love teaching so much that I just found myself really torn between. My energy was, but I understand now that I've done that a lot in my life, do 2 things at the same time. And I didn't want to do this anymore. I wanted to just fully focus. So it made sense not to teach. So I'll teach again one day when I have time, or if it's a temporary master class. I really love it, but not full time. I can't do it.
And what were you teaching at Columbia?
So in the 4th year of being a student, you can apply for a teaching job. I taught a screenwriting lab. And I was also Richard Peña's teaching assistant. So I also taught 1 class to his students about the films that he screened. What do I teach? Directing actors, directing, and a class I created called Film Diaries, which is about just working inside out and trying to figure out who you are as a person and what the story only you can tell.
You make Submarine 2016?
Mm-hmm.
And you make Costa Brava 2020?
I don't know,
Yeah?
Yeah.
In those 4 years, are you working, or are you just going 4 years of residences and screen labs and...
I was working. I was shooting commercials, fashion films, teaching every summer at Northwestern University, the summer film camp.
Right.
With those 5 friends I told you about, we all created the film program. I'm not created, the curriculum, I mean. So I was basically shooting projects. Writing. So I did the writing residency of Cine Fondation, but while I was in Cine Fondation, I still shot a couple of things. So it was residencies, writing, teaching, shooting commercials. Yeah, it was a couple of years where I was, exploring. And
So
I'm in a different place now because now I can't do that many things. Just my mind goes.
of course, but also, I mean, thankfully, I guess you got bigger jobs now that take up more space and that, thankfully give you enough to be able to.
Yeah, but I really wanted that thing then.
Right.
I loved it. I was, it was perfect because I was living in New York still under like the student. I was teaching at Columbia. The summer we were teaching in Chicago all together. So it was an excuse to spend the month together. And then when I would go back to Lebanon, I would shoot the commercials. So it was a very structured thing.
Yeah.
But and it worked because it was part of me exploring. And then I spent a whole year just writing, like as much as I could, because I was doing prep and we were auditioning. So like while we started the prep on Costa Brava, I was still writing.
Right.
Yeah.
So whilst writing, you get into all of these incredible screen labs. I just did my first screen lab in Switzerland, and some of the consultants, unbelievable consultants. The first thing that really struck to me is your film, Costa Brava, Lebanon. It breaks a lot of classical commercial screenwriting rules. How the hell do you propose a script that is so bold? The point of views were so strong from the mother, the father, Reem, Tala?
Yeah.
Yeah. That I was thinking, man, even the POVs, I didn't even actually know. I felt like everyone was sort of the main character to a certain extent. How did you manage to keep that vision with these consultants who would tell you, oh no, but page 15, you need to have the inciting incident. And what exactly is the arc? What POV are we following? All of them have way too much importance.
Well, I do have an inciting incident on page 15.
You do?
But no, I think that's a great question. The danger when you start doing these labs, especially with international funding, is for people to tell you what your story is, or for Lebanese script to tell you what cliches they want you to perpetuate, So you have to really like protect yourself against that. And there's no advice on how to do it. Just make sure not to absorb everything. And my advice to my younger self would be, don't go to any of these labs until you really know what you want your film to be about and what it is, because then you can take the notes in a way that's helpful. Luckily, a lot of these labs have mentors that are not prescriptive, but that's not for all of them. So I say, like, know what's the story you want to tell before you share it with anyone, so that if anyone tells you something, you know which one to just no thank you and which one to keep. I think like creating one way to make a film just goes against like everything I feel, there is a way to write a story in 8 sequences, and I learned it. And yeah, there is something exciting about having a motor, like the inciting incident on page 12, and then entering act 2 on page 30. And if it helps you structurally to have those pillars, then do it for you. But don't let the structure define how your story is told, because I think that a script can be like, so many things can define the structure of a story. It can be the character, it can be the outer situation. And I'm sure that some of the films you love the most are films that just invented something new.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that like it becomes a taste thing. If you want your character to learn something at the end of your film or not, it depends on your character. Some people don't want to learn new things and some people do. So it really is about that. Like in my second feature, the protagonist is not very lovable. And I don't care. She's just a very flawed person. And if anyone tells me, how are you going to redeem her in the end? How are you going to make us love her? I'll say, I don't care if you love her or not. Like, this is her journey and she's dealing with that. If it's attractive to you or not, is not my problem. My job is to make it exciting to watch and relatable,
Yes.
somehow. So I think I have nothing against structure. I think it can be a really great tool when you're training yourself to write a lot, as long as you are aware that creating your own structure is what is going to create a more unique like piece, you know, whether it follows a structure or not. I think it's important to play within it. What I do personally, and no one needs to do the same, is I like kind of like looking at the 8-sequence 3-act structure every now and then to compare like my structure to that. And sometimes it injects me with something. But when I wrote Submarine, because it's a short film, I really didn't think about anything. It was just my gut writing. But you know, the short I had done before, I really tried to. So I think it's important to try different things. For me, the structure I like the most is the idea that a story where a character goes from point A to point B, but what I find realistic in terms of arc is something has moved in them. They grew an inch. Like, I like knowing that a character has either learned something about the world or about themselves or, you know, about people. Like, that's what experiences do to us as people.
Sure.
So if you think about that, like, you know, every experiences moves something in you.
Yes.
And that movement is structure. You know, and I like that a lot. In Costa Brava, I hesitated a lot between a multi-protagonist story. So the family as a protagonist and Nadine, the little kid, as a protagonist. I went back and forth a lot, and I wrote the script 5 times, every time from the perspective of one of them. And at the Sundance Lab, I think when I was shooting the different scenes and just trying, I just thought, you know, I really want this film to be about a family. So I'm going to have to commit to that, even though it's going to make the writing really more difficult. Because when you tell the story, if I had told the story through Reem, it would have really helped me define my visual language, choose what's off screen, play with but when your responsibility is a whole family, it's like, okay, each of them needs a moment, you know?
Totally agree.
And and if I have magical realism, each of them has one of them. And it's like a whole orchestra of going from one to the other. But the film still has an inciting incident,
absolutely,
a final showdown, a climax, yes. And that came not because I sat and said that, but more like looking at the film, I wanted to tell a story, and that made sense with their status quo being disrupted and them being shaken by it, and how it really affects the family. And what does the family learn from that experience? And how does it change the dynamics of the family? That was the idea of the structure.
Absolutely. No, and it totally works, and I totally felt it. But one of the things was I was like, oh my God, how difficult it must have been. And now I'm realizing it, to create that multi-protagonist.
It was very difficult, and I don't think I did it as well as I could if I had spent more time writing.
Really?
Yeah. I think that the script needs to be really bulletproof before you go and shoot it. And sometimes because of life, because of the industry, because of budget, because of pressure, because of self-pressure, you shoot something that you haven't had a bit of distance from. And I think that whenever you think you have a final draft, it's important to take a week off and then read it again and then think, is that a bulletproof script? You know what I mean?
Sure, but then the question is, when do you know that it's good enough? Because
it's
you're saying bulletproof, but that's the thing.
Yeah.
As artists, it can always get better.
Yeah, it's never good enough. But I think from the moment you think it's done, just take a week off and then read it again is like what I feel. I felt the same with the editing. I felt like I needed a week after I locked. Like for my second film, I would take a week or 2 after I think I'm locked.
Right.
And let things just go back in the background and then come back and watch it again. Because what happens when you go on autopilot and you stop thinking about it intensely is you get ideas that come automatically when you're not under pressure. So if you can, in your schedule, create a moment of taking a bit of space and then coming back to it, whether it's 1 day, 2 days, or 2 weeks, I find this really important.
This might be a very vulgar question, but what would you have changed?
Well, I sometimes wonder if it had to be a film through the perspective of Reem.
Yes. Yeah.
Though I respect the old version of myself that really wanted the protagonist to be the family.
Yes.
So I don't really regret it, but I'd be curious to see that. I think the movie ends 3 times as Submarine, as everything I ever done. I think I would rework the ending. I would be a bit more bold in the scenes that bridge between scenes, like, you know, entrances and exits of scenes. And I would just enter scenes much later and leave them earlier and just try to create a language that feels more faithful to the erratic nature of those characters' experience,
Right.
less careful about entering and exiting and how do we get from this place to this other place, and just trying to play a bit more with the rhythm of a family that is falling apart.
How did you come to work with this Arab superstar, Nadine Labaki?
I really love Nadine. She's an amazing person. And also her husband's music studio was right below my childhood bedroom in Lebanon.
Right.
So we had a relationship like through the window for many years without really like knowing each other very well. We always, spoke, and Lebanon is like a little village. So everyone knows everyone. And I knew a bit about her life because, we knew each other. And I knew that she was living a little bit like in the film, in the countryside with her family. And I knew that her story after the pandemic and during the pandemic started resembling a little bit certain dynamics of the film. So, and of course, I knew she was an incredible actress and all of these things. That's, so I thought of just having, a coffee with her to just discuss it.
Yeah.
Because for me, like, I didn't want to do it any other way. Like, I don't want to send her the script or I wanted to know if we both felt this felt right. So we had a coffee in our neighborhood in Beirut where we both live. And I told her what the story was about, how I imagined telling it, and why I thought she'd be great for it. And she basically told me that she felt really, really connected to the story, to the setting, to that woman. And the meeting started with just me kind of like sharing with her what I'm doing, to us brainstorming on the character already, right?
Sure.
Away. And that's how it all started. And then she told me she was interested, that she felt like she really wanted to be in a role where she could be just her raw self and to be directed by another woman that she can have a collaboration with. And it was really great. She did not behave at all like a director on set. She was just an actress who relinquished control and who was just like trusting me fully. And she was amazing. And yeah, I loved every minute of working with her, because I saw a side of her that not many people maybe would have had access to. And that's the bond like of a director actor that builds on a shoot, and us as two women who kind of like, had things that we were repressing. It really brought us together, I think, this experience. And I think she did an amazing job at just relinquishing control and just being connected to the rest of the actors. And I love casts that are a mix of non-professional actors, and the grandmother and the kid are not actors. The kid is a twin. There's two kids, two girls. And then there's Tala, who is an actress, the father who's an actor. So it's nice, the mix is nice because everyone feeds off the other and everyone is inspired by the method of the other because it's so different.
How, as a director, do you get a sense of how to speak to an actor to try and get him to reach that emotion? And how do you adapt it? I
really adapt the technique, the directing actors to every actor in a completely different way. Whether I'm working with, I don't know, Martin Freeman or Stephen Graham or Reem or Tala or Nadine, I think I instinctively now direct the actor in a way I think helps them most. And I just follow the energy of the person, for me, I think because I started as an actress when I was younger, I kind of understood that the actor is the most vulnerable person on set, when you say cut, the actor is wondering how they were, they're trusting you with just being the vehicle for those emotional storylines, but you are the eye, And so it's really important to, for me, for example, as soon as I say cut, I go to the actor and I tell them how it felt,
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to be aware that the actor is the most vulnerable person on set, and it's really important to create a safe space for them without babying them. No, we're all adults and professional, but just being able to adapt to every person. I think that's what I do even with crew members, I would find it very hard as an actress to be asked what the antagonistic force is in a scene, because it would bring me in a heady place. Whereas like, I would have to go into specific examples, but I'll just go to Costa Brava.
Sure.
With Reem, the kid, like I understood right away that she wasn't going to be a person that was going to memorize and recite and like think. No, I had to play games with her. I had to make her react, because acting is reacting. So I had to either make sure that the adult in front of her is really giving her a lot because she's very instinctive and reactive, and make sure to build a theater environment for her in which I'm getting real things out of her by playing games, by giving her challenges, by just suggesting that she improv sometimes, or directing her through the other actor. If I want her to be down, I can tell the other actor to tell her a sad story, and like that is in the fiction and all that. With Nadine and I loved talking about the inner world of Soraya a lot, but then on set, we had spoken so much that I didn't have much to say. Like it would be little things like, okay, in this scene with him, hurt him more. You have the directing actor's book there, the action verbs.
Yes, action verbs.
The reason why action verbs work is because it's helping an actor be focused on the other actor, not on themselves, like criticize him or put him down or humiliate him. So I can say my line in how my interpretation of that verb is. So you're not giving me result direction, like be sad or be angry or do this or do that. You're telling me this is a moment where you need to make them feel like shit. So do it in your way. And that way you get an actor to just put from their, soul in it, And you were asking me earlier about how I write. From the moment I knew Nadine was Soraya, I rewrote based on how she speaks, how she is, based on things she told me in our meetings. I just took from our conversations a lot. And then she rewrites the character when she plays the character. So with Saleh, with the father, it was similar to Nadine. With the grandmother, who was not an actress, it was, again, like basically I adapted to each actor. And some actors, like they like to be told things that are much simpler, like now, for example, now that I've worked on 2 projects with, let's say, Emily Fern, like now I'm like, that was a 2, go to a 4, like when you have a really close relationship with someone and you've done all the chat and you're on set and you don't want to sit and have a therapy session. It could just be like, okay, a little less, like right now, like what you did was like quite nice, but or for example, another thing that I like doing is just reminding the actor where they are emotionally, like let's say this is a scene in which she tells someone that she wants to get married or whatever, and I'm like, okay, remember, it's not just any person saying she wants to get married. This is a person whose parents really like showed her the worst version of life, who just had a miscarriage from someone she doesn't know, so that's the person who's saying this. And then, like reminding the actor of the circumstances and sometimes pumping them up depending on what you're looking for the scene. And a tool I really love to use is just working from the other actor to pinch, to create a bigger reaction,
I noticed that you hired twins for Reem. Was it for practicality that you used twins, or was it you wanted twins? Like, why did you hire twins instead of one actress?
I couldn't find Reem, and it was really frustrating because I was like, oh, I'm not finding the right person. And,
right.
You start, blaming yourself for not looking enough and all of that. And then one day we said, let's just spread out of the acting schools and all of these things. And let's just like go look in the streets. Like, let's go find this street casting. And so one of the casting directors told me, hey, Mounia, so I'm on my balcony and there's a girl and I wanted Reem to have blue eyes so that she's the copy paste of her father. And, but I was willing to sacrifice that idea if we found the perfect Reem with dark eyes, of course.
Sure.
And she sends me a video of a little kid yelling at her whole family with a huge dog in her hand. And she films her and she's like, should I ask her? She's my neighbor and she's hysterical. I said, oh my God, she's perfect. Please bring her. And then she said, yeah, but there's 2 of them. They're twins. I said, well, bring them both. One of them maybe will be Reem.
Wow.
And then I met both and I loved them both for very different reasons. One of them was more of a tomboy. The other one was like an old soul in the heart of a little girl. So I just chose which girl would shoot which scenes based on what I thought their strengths were. as actresses.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And by the way, like, none of them are shy. It's an illusion you have from the documentary. Or maybe they're more shy as themselves. But as Reem, they were like shining.
Where does the OCD side of Reem come from?
Me. No, the OCD comes from, I think, I just wanted to find a way. I mean, definitely when I was a kid, I had OCD, and the number 44 came from some diary entries that I found. But I think I just wanted to find a way to show her internalized and inherited anxiety.
Yes.
That she's not aware of, that comes out in what she thinks is a game, but actually is, you know, we inherit things from our ancestors, from our parents. And I think it's her way to just, we think she's this free-spirited girl, but actually she's in the man-made prison of her father. So that was part of that.
I'm so happy that you said that Costa Brava was an extension of Submarine.
Yeah.
I actually thought that thematically it was very much preoccupied with the nostalgia glorifies too much this idea of home to the point that it warps the reality that we're living in that particular moment. Is that how you feel about Lebanon?
I go between being really hopeful and then being disillusioned, and being being there during the garbage crisis and then the economic collapse and the pandemic, and after the explosion strengthened my bond with it. But I really went from having hope and being part of the revolution to realizing that actually all of this is useless, and we're just like eaten by the forces, like that little percentage that is in control of everything. So I go back and forth, but I just feel like the general feeling I have, especially now with everything that's happening, is I'm just really disillusioned with, you know, the silence of, you know, everyone, you know, when it comes to what's happening in the Middle East. And so, but you're asking specifically about Lebanon. I would say the relationship with Lebanon is one of like hope, disillusionment. And I feed off of that dichotomy. I think living in Lebanon is a lot of that. It's a lot of like love, hate, joy, anxiety. This could be the best place in the world. This is the most fucked up place in the world. And it's just, you know, it's just, there's a lot of work to be done for the country to be at its full potential. But I feel now we're in a better place than we were 2 years ago.
So hope.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I think I want to talk to you more about like the making of Costa Brava, Lebanon, this absolutely extraordinary documentary on the edge of the volcano. Yes,
it's a documentary by Cyril, the person I started it all with. It's called Dancing on the Edge of a Volcano.
That's it, Dancing on the Edge of the Volcano.
After the explosion, Cyril, which he often does, like he did with his first documentary, The Swing, he just grabs his camera and films things. It's his way to cope with tragedy. The Swing was about the death of his aunt, tragically a surprise for the whole family. And Dancing on the Edge of a Volcano, he was just filming the Lebanese communities cleaning the streets after the explosion, and just like the artistic community, the film community, and how everyone came together or not around that time. And what happened is that his camera slowly landed on a film crew trying to make a film during this time, which happened to be our film crew. So in the beginning, we were just one of the characters of the many characters he was filming from people he knew. Then he thought, I'm going to just follow them, and that will be the narrative. Like, I think his camera slowly found that story, and he asked my producer if it would be okay that he's just a fly on the wall while we're shooting. It was literally just him and another person. And we said, yeah, as long as we don't notice you. And because he's such a dear friend, we didn't really think about it more than that. And there were moments where, you know, like there was one day where a month after the explosion, which obviously, as you know, I was in, I mean, very close. A month after, there was a fire that everyone thought was going to be another explosion, because on the day of the explosion, there was white smoke. Everyone was filming it, thinking, what is that? And then it all blew up. So a month later, after we were dealing with the PTSD and all of that, I was in Beirut, and everyone was like, evacuate the city, there's smoke coming out. So everyone thought, oh my God, it's happening again. So all of the strength and the freeze and fight mode that I had on August 4th, I didn't have on that day. So I just like had a complete, like my first ever panic attack. And me and Joe, the cinematographer, drove to the mountains and to Cyril's house where he, hosted us. And there he asked me if I could film. And I said no. Like, so there were moments in which he thought it would be a good thing to like record this for the film and the bigger picture. But he was like, no, my friend is struggling. I'm not going to film. It makes no sense. So there's a lot of moments that he didn't film because he didn't feel like, he felt he needed to just be there for us instead. But it would have made an even more dramatic documentary. So there was this interesting conversation around, when do you pick up the camera and when do you throw it away and just be there in the present? And that was interesting. So there were a couple of moments where it really blew up and he didn't pick up the camera.
You were in the middle of a meeting because you were talking about white smoke. Did you even see the white smoke? Because weren't you in the meeting? So you didn't even have any.
No, I just got the explosion. I didn't get the pre.
So could you talk me through like how it happened?
Yes. Basically, we were in the office. The shoot had been moved so many times. It had been 3 years that we were like, oh, we're shooting. Oh, we're not. Oh, we're shooting. So we were already like, oh, we really want to shoot. And then the pandemic hit and we decided to shoot during the pandemic before the vaccine, which was already insane. My producer really wanted it to be to use the film also as an impact campaign for the environment, like the environmental disaster that was created from this crisis. So we created a green shoot protocol, collaborated with environmental organizations and activists. So we had all this plan, and then suddenly this happened. And not that the film matters in the context of this, but it's just to say, for us, it was finally we greenlit the shoot on August 3rd. So on August 4th, it was our first meeting, like on the first day of the pre-production. And I was there with my cinematographer, the costume designer, the producer, and an hour before 6:07, which is the time of the explosion, the man who translated the poem, which is said as a voiceover, Dear Beirut, the love letter to Beirut, came to the office to read to me what he had done. Because I asked him to translate this Palestinian American woman's poem into Arabic. And so basically an hour before Beirut exploded, we were listening to a love letter to Beirut by this musician poet, which is, and anyway, what happened is that we started hearing like ta 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 ta, something like that. So someone said, what are these gunshots? And we were laughing about it, and suddenly like the whole like wall and windows collapsed on us. We're all filled with glass and blood, and my cinematographer was banged on the head, so he almost lost his eye. There was basically, suddenly I was looking for my colleagues under blood and like tables. And that was like, I lived most of my childhood years. I was born the year the Civil War ended. So I had like a really beautiful childhood. It's only in my teenage years with the Hariri assassination and all of that I started like understanding a little bit more, but never like in the scale of the explosion. It's like on that day, the explosion kind of helped me understand so much better what I was born into. So the explosion happened. We all, like, the rest of the day was us trying to find a hospital and going out of the building, realizing the scale of it all, because with the intensity of it on that day, we thought, there was like an assassination attempt right below our building. It feels so close. And then we came out and the whole street was the same, and screams, and like basically that's when we understood what happened. And it's only 7 hours later that I saw the video that everyone saw on the news. Anyway, long story short.
So 7 hours later, you saw the video?
Yeah, because we were too busy trying to get Joe to the hospital. My mother, like superhero, picked us up, took us like to the hospital in the mountains, because the people, like all the hospitals around us, were destroyed because they were in the area of the explosion, which was a huge area. And when we would go to other hospitals, we were not the priority. Like people had lost hands and so we had to find a place that we could take Joe to, so I can get my stitches on him as well. And Miriam went with her husband, and then we all separated, but me and Joe and my mom continued together.
Joe is the one who
cinematographer.
Yeah.
and that shot Submarine as well. Anyway, so what happened then is that obviously we stopped the shoot. Everyone dealt with just rebuilding everything, and but then shooting 2 months or 3 months later really became for all of us like, okay, we need a reason to just be active, not sit and rethink, because we all were struggling with really heavy PTSD. So I think having a purpose and having a communal thing to do together helped us get, or at least some of us, get back on track. Of course, some of the crew members thought that they needed to just sit and digest everything that had happened for a bit longer. And these are the people who didn't do the film completely understandably. And the ones who did it are ones who were like, no, we need to have a reason to wake up in the morning, to resist together, tell stories, etc., etc. So the film was made, I think, by the people who left because they had prepped it and the people who stayed. And just this, like, I don't know, like the journey of making it like was really empowering, because it was just like the best moment in the world in the middle of the worst moment in the world. And that was really nice. A moment of community.
That's the one thing that I'll take away from the documentary. That was very emotional for me. Was we think of directing as, obviously master shot, then you get into your coverages, your techniques, all of that jazz, the screenwriting. Yeah. But I think I really understood what directing was whilst watching that film.
Yeah.
Because let me do the list. There's the explosion. There's the pandemic. Your actor who had an Israeli passport was stuck in Jordan, had to go to Turkey, then Jordan. You have the Israeli rockets. You have drones. You have governmental upheaval with all of the various strikes. And I'm just thinking like, holy shit, this bar none beats everything. If you want to be a good director, you just have to have grit, real grit and courage to just brave through all of that and just...
Yeah, I think if you have a story to tell and it stimulates you and your gut, then even like now that I'm working in TV, and by the way, like the Boiling Point team had watched Costa Brava, and that's why they reached out to me. So again, like even a film that comes from home, if seen by like, so because I'm asked often so many questions about the bridge between different stories and I think when a story is universal or it feels universal to you, you connect to it right away. So the bridge from Costa Brava to Boiling Point was through like Phil and Steven and Hannah just connecting to the film and feeling like I could be the right person to tell the story of the last 2 episodes of Boiling Point. Because again, like stories travel, and that's how I went from Boiling Point to The Responder and now House of Guinness. And like, and every time I work on a TV show, I try to do the same thing that I did on Costa Brava, which is, why do I care about the script? How can I make it mine? Like House of Guinness is about a dysfunctional family, but in the 1800s, So I think for me, it's hard to have the energy to work as hard, because it's hard, to be a filmmaker, if I don't have a personal connection to the material. And if I don't have it, either I try to find it or I don't, do it. And I think that's what keeps someone going, feeling like, oh, I want to tell the story. I can relate to it somehow, and that's what I think makes you want to get up every morning, because you can be not passionate about something and do a shitty job. And that's probably because you're not the right person for that job.
I agree. But then there's a difference between having a bulletproof story that you absolutely want to tell and then overcoming immense fear of potentially just like things that might kill you. For me, if I see Israeli drones flying above me, I mean, I'm already taking the day like, am I going to die today?
The drones of Israel that you see in the film are surveillance drones. So when you see them, those are not killing you. They're just taking pictures and surveying. So we know the difference between those and those. The ones that go slowly with 2 lines in the sky.
Sure.
But because it was so recently after a traumatic event, everything that felt like dark was really overwhelming me. So it's not in the documentary, but every time the drones would pass or every time I would hear like big loud sounds, or we had to create an SFX explosion in the film. In all these moments, I didn't deal well at all with it. Like I had to go to the bathroom, breathe calmly, like people, so we're supporting each other. But I had to use the moment between the action and the cut to like just that moment I would just escape in and it would be great. But there were a lot of moments where I had a lot of anxiety related to the PTSD and other people in the crew as well, and we just supported each other through it. Like now I've done enough work to know when I'm safe, when I'm not, but I think many people don't. Like I have the privilege to say that because I am in London right now, but like many people don't have the privilege to say that. So yeah.
And you notice it, and I thought it was just such a beautiful moment because at one point there was like a big sound and you could tell that one of the Ream sisters is really scared.
Yeah.
And you just hug her.
Yeah.
You're like, it's cool, it's just a truck or something.
But when we did the actual like SFX explosion on set,
yeah,
I was like, the SFX team offered all the team earplugs and all of that. And I put a lot of things on me, and I was like, oh, I can't believe I wrote this in the script. Now I have to listen to that. And so we did it, and then the teenage girl saw me and she's like, Mounia, that was nothing. You're such a baby. And she was like much closer to it in a safe distance, of course.
Yeah, of course. What is your advice for an aspiring director such as myself?
Try different things, like be open. And I think what I did in the beginning is I was just like trying things, making this, making that, like just trying to find my voice through making, and through that you meet people, and I would say just surround yourself by people who think like you and who are a nice energy around you, and just don't be fake and be genuine with people, because there's so much bullshit in this industry, so don't spend time with bullshitters and don't be one. Basically.
Well,
and just keep telling a story that you feel only you can tell, and try to find your like original voice by just trying things out. And actually one thing that I forgot to do when I was in film school is do other things than films, and making films and writing films and spending time with film people. And I think writing about life like cannot happen without experiencing life, and reading, spending time with your family, with your loved ones. Just listen to all the stories your grandparents have to say before they go, and just try to nourish your brain with life and not just films, because films are about life,
Is your new film going to be set in Lebanon?
Yes.
Fantastic.
I mean, I've shot in the UK for the last 2 years with those shows, and I have a feature I'm developing that's set in the US. But this second film I'm writing is set in Lebanon. But there is an Irish character.
Nice.
Yeah.
So there you go. House of Bergman has brushed off on you.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much for accepting to come here,
so
Mounia. And I've learned so much, and I've been so inspired.
And thank you to you guys.
Thank you, guys.